Okay, let's start this again. Seeing that it's 6:30, I would like to start the Town of Belgrade Board of Select Persons July 20, 2021 meeting to order. First up, we have a public hearing on the remote meetings policy. So I'll take a motion to open that item. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the public hearing is open. Anthony, do you want to lead that?
Certainly I can. Well, as you guys know, last Thursday, you reviewed a draft of a policy that was adopted by the town of Orono, and you incorporated some changes. Those are in your select board packet. They're highlighted in yellow, the changes from the policy that you saw on Thursday. So in short, just as a reminder to folks, this policy only pertains to board and members. It does not pertain to the public. And so what it requires is that board and committee members would be required to attend meetings in person unless they met some certain sets of conditions. And generally, those are that they're suffering from some sort of compromised condition, or that something unexpected has occurred in their schedule, perhaps a vehicle, or they've been called suddenly out of town on business, or there's some family emergency or health crisis. So anyway, that is the policy that is you now, and I sent it around to all of our boards and committees to solicit their feedback and encourage them to attend this meeting should they have any input that they'd like to offer.
All right, is there anyone that would like to weigh in on the policy? Proposed policy? All right, CJ's iPhone, I'm not sure who that is.
CJ will have to unmute himself or herself.
I'm sorry, Carol Johnson. My computer's acting crazy, so I'm trying to attend on my iPhone.
Okay.
The comment I'd like to make is I think I'm concerned that it's really tightly narrowing opportunities for committee members on committees. There are a lot of folks who, especially when it gets dark early, don't like to drive at night, or we could have some folks that maybe go to Florida for 2 or 3 months and could be very proactive committee members, but because they're away for that period of time, they're not able to participate. So I just offer that as a consideration to look at.
Thank you, Carol. All right, is there anyone else who has anything that would like to weigh in? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Sarah.
You have a hand up, Sarah.
Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, this is Sarah Langette. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I actually second Carol's statement that she couldn't put it any more eloquent than I would have. And that's all I'm gonna say.
So I do just want to make a point to let Carol and Sarah know that that's something that the board has considered. It isn't anything that we can change. So the guidelines are put forward by the Maine State Legislature, and we've had to tweak what we can tweak. But the main point is that if you have a seat on a board or a committee, then you are now that they're going back to in-person meetings, you have to have your seat in a room with everyone else. You can't participate just remotely unless you fit into some of the criteria. So we don't have the option to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just had to warm it up. So is there any more comments or discussion points? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion to end the public hearing.
So moved.
So be it.
All right, and now refresh my memory, you guys. Do we vote now or do we wait, open up the board meeting and then we vote in the board meeting? Okay, that's what I thought, but then I was like, well, let me just double check myself. Okay, so I will take a motion. So I'm going to call to order the board meeting for this evening, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'll take a motion to open the select board meeting.
So be it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I need a motion on the remote meeting policy.
Make the motion to accept it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Dan,
Yes.
Ricky,
No.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ernie?
No.
Oh, boy, that's tricky. All right, I'm going to say yes. So 3 yeses, 2 nos. All right, next up, we have the portion of the meeting for public comment. And that is for anyone who has something they would like to bring to the board's attention that will not already be addressed with this evening's agenda. So there is a section at the bottom, a couple folks have used it right now. If you wiggle your mouse, you do have a line at the bottom where you have reactions and participants. If you click on reactions, you have a spot where you can raise your hand. That brings you right to the forefront. So if someone would like to speak, they can use that tool and that will help. So Penny? Oh, you're muted.
No, she-
Nope.
Even when she's not muted, we can't hear her.
Oh.
Maybe your volume's down. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Nope.
No, you're going to have to go into your settings. Say your microphone must be turned down.
Penny, now you are muted.
Nope. You're on mute right now, Penny. Okay, you're unmuted now. But we still can't hear you. So in your settings on your computer, is it turned down? Or if you wiggle your mouse over on the far left, do you have an audio button that you need to do anything with?
Could we see if anyone else has public comment while she's trying to figure that out?
Yeah, no one else has their hand raised, so I was gonna give her another 30 seconds or so.
Okay.
Penny, is it something that's urgent that we address this evening, or can we do it at our next meeting?
She's gonna tell you.
Can she put it in the chat? Is there a chat?
Yeah, Penny, can you try the chat feature on the side where you can type whatever it is you're trying to say? Okay, so that's something that we can look at another meeting. So you want Belgrade to be affirmed as a Second Amendment town? Is that what you're asking? Okay. Is there something we would benefit from by making some public acclamation for that? I did see Albion's resolution, but is there somehow that Belgrade would benefit by making a public sentiment about that? All right. Penny, do you have something else you've put here? Okay, the nation is trying to, okay. All right, well, that's something that we can certainly put on an upcoming agenda to see if that's something that the board would consider doing. Okay. All right, is there anyone else who has sent anything for public comment? All right, seeing none. We'll move on to old business. First up, we have the approval of the July 6, 2021 meeting, select board meeting minutes. We'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are open for discussion.
They looked okay to me.
All right, seeing none. Dan, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
and Melanie. 5 yeses. Okay, next up, we have the July 15, 2021 Select Board meeting minutes. I'll take a motion.
So be it.
Second,
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? All right, that item is open for discussion. All right, seeing none. Dan?
Yeah.
Barbara?
Yes,
Rick?
Yes,
Ernie?
yes,
All right, 5 yeses. Next up, we have a discussion and the consideration of a remote meetings policy. Wait, hold on. So we've already done that. So next we have a discussion and considerations of a Veterans Memorial improvements, including sidewalk extension, solar lighting, and a bench. Take a motion to open that item.
so be it.
second,
Moved and seconded. All right, all those in favor, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, Gary Molly, you have the board. The board's attention.
Hey, Gary, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I think you're all aware of what happened to that effort to increase the number of names on that monument in Belgrade Lakes. So because that can't be done, and we all agreed with the lone survivor of the group that gave it to the town that it should remain as is, but we'd like it to be prettier, for lack of a better word. I had an idea to take the sidewalk that was installed and move it and extend it back to the front of the monument, and then put a bench in there, and also take the existing lights down and put in solar lights. However, Carol Johnson went out and she has a friend, I think he's the state gardener or something like that. And he's come up with a plan not to do that, but to put plants around, including a number of different plants. I like that idea better. I think it would be, the way it is right now, it's fairly nice. But to put in some perennials and other plants to enhance it would be better, I think. Now, the cost of doing it my way would be probably $1,000 to $1,200. And we'd ask the town to do that. But the cost of putting in plants would be somewhere around $300. We could probably raise that money fairly easily and buy the plants and then have the town plant them. I don't think we'd put a bench in at that point, but we get somebody to donate solar lights to put in down there to take the two off that are on top of the monument. So that's kind of what we'd like to do. I think we're more to the point of putting plants in and making it nice than we are putting the sidewalk back to the base of the monument. And that's all I've got to say on this subject.
So Gary, who would take care of the plants?
You guys already do. Belongs to the town, was given to the town.
That's usually the sexton that does that, Melanie.
Carol?
Yeah, the plants, the gentleman that looked at it is Kent Cooper, and he's the landscape architect for the state of Maine, and he's the one who worked on the road. And he suggested basically lilacs and yellow lilies and some vinca, all of which, pretty much they don't need a lot of attention. So he's not talking anything in an annual. That's what he thought would be a very low maintenance way to enhance it.
So there won't be anything with the lilacs 20 years down the road that the root system is going to get in underneath that memorial or anything like that? Because I know my lilacs spread, which I love, but
I can't answer that. I'm not a lilac expert. That's just what he thought would fit in there with the design of the monument. So
Bruce?
I would not recommend lilacs. We have a huge problem at the cemetery with around the stones and stuff.
Okay, Carol?
if there's an aversion to lilacs, I'm sure Kent would come up with something else. I'm more than happy to contact him and tell him that there is concern over lilacs, and what would he suggest in place of that?
All right, does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, so does this mean that there would not be the solar lighting and the bench, or there would still be the solar lighting? No solar lighting and no sidewalk
No,
extension?
I think there would be solar lighting, but the bench probably not.
And the sidewalk extension? Would the
No,
sidewalk?
no, it would be more floral than anything else in there.
Okay.
So maintenance for the town would be taking care of the greenery and probably power washing that monument once a year.
Is that already done, the power washing of the monument?
I'm not sure they did it. They were asked to do it, but I'm not sure they did it yet.
We don't have anyone in the cemetery committee either, because I was wondering if because they rotate when the headstones get done. So you would think that that would be done at the same time, because I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume, but that similar material would need to be used on the memorial. Dan, did
No,
you?
The only time you'd need to use anything on the monument, if you got moss or something like that on it, just a regular wash-in can be done yearly.
Now, do we have a portable pressure washer that we can take down there to do that, and a power source to hook it up to?
I'm assuming he can probably get power source. That'd be the only thing you need, be a power source.
Yeah.
He has a portable pressure washer.
So you would need a power source. Now, the new one-ton.
Business next door would provide the power for it.
I'm sure they would.
It's not a problem.
Don't we have a gas power washer? Or is it electric?
I'm not sure, Ernie.
Is that something that we're actually considering? Is the washing? Because it says extension, solar lighting, and bench, but now it's flowers and lighting.
The monument itself probably needs to be cleaned periodically. It's brick, the main source with cement top and bottom, but it needs to be cleaned periodically.
I will talk with our staff about that this week, see if we can get out there and get it power washed.
Good plan.
Okay, so then you're just looking for the board to say if we can find some flowers to spruce it up that aren't going to be invasive for a go ahead. And you said you thought you could raise the $300 or so for the flowers.
Yes, that's not a problem.
Okay. So I guess we're just looking for a motion to say, yes, go ahead and plant some flowers. Is that all we're doing?
But the town will plant them.
The town will plant them, and the town needs to be responsible for that little Veterans Memorial.
Make that motion. That's what you're looking for.
Second that.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Dan?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Ernie?
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses. Now's it up.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have new business. And the first item under new business is a consideration of accepting Gary Mahler's resignation as chair of the ad hoc committee on senior resources. So that will be one. So I'll take a motion to open that item.
Will be it.
Second,
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, do we have a written resignation or a verbal resignation, Gary?
Gary did send an email tendering his resignation to the town office.
Okay. And when was that?
2 months ago.
2 months ago?
No, it
It
wasn't.
wasn't quite that long ago. I think it was maybe a couple of weeks.
Okay. Well, sorry, Gary, because you started the committee and I guess I didn't realize that you didn't want to do it. I hadn't seen the resignation. So do we have a copy of it, Anthony, or? Can't hear you, you're muted.
Sorry about that. No, I did not include it in the package. It was just a one-line email that said, I hereby tender my resignation effective immediately.
All right, so I need a motion to accept that resignation.
So be
I'll do
it.
it with regret.
So moved and seconded with regret. All right.
Who's going to stay on the committee? Thank you, Gary, for staying on the committee.
Okay, then, okay, sorry. Dan,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
Barbara,
yes,
and myself, 5-0. All right, next we are have a question before the board of appointing Mary Vogel and Tasha Stevens as co-chairs for the Committee on Senior Resources.
I'll make,
Oh, we'll take a motion.
I'll
second,
second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor. All right, so we have a notice here from Mary Vogel that says Tasha Stevens and I are interested in reestablishing the Ad hoc Committee on Senior Resources. The group was unable to meet during the pandemic, and Gary has submitted his resignation as the chair. He's agreeable to continuing to serve as a committee member because of the Board of Select Persons established. You must formally accept his resignation and add the Ad hoc Committee to restructure the chairmanship. So we have before us the setup for the committee. So, hold on one moment. So what we need, Mary, is actually we would need to change the committee's makeup. So under section C, it would say the chairpersons or co-chairpersons would be appointed by the Board of Select Persons.
Yes, co-chair Melanie.
So co-chairs. So wherever it says chairperson, we will change that to co-chairs.
Yeah, we both Tasha and I wanted to continue with the group, but neither one of us wanted to solely chair the committee, and we felt job sharing, it would work for both of us. And I do want to say that Gary did an extreme amount of work. He sent a lot of emails and he did a lot of work. And so we really want to keep Gary on the committee. So I do have some questions that I'll bring up later on. And I guess, Gary might be able to answer as to, why it's an ad hoc committee. Because it seems to be very loose. We've had a lot of different members come and go. And, I don't know if we should be doing it as we do the rest of the committees and formally have them fill out paperwork. that way they're more vested in the committee because, as Gary will tell you, we've had a lot of committee members that have attended different meetings, but they're not always there. So we do want to talk about restructuring things a little bit in the future. So, but Tasha and I just would like to move forward, with just reestablishing the committee itself.
Okay, because I do feel like when I read through what we did do in 2018, and I think I felt at the time like we were sort of not having it be in line with some of the other committees, because we have like the committee chairperson will determine the number of members. And we normally have a set number and, with different parameters. So it very much isn't set up like one of the other committees. But
I think Gary might be able to answer some of those questions as to why. I think they had an end goal, and I'm not sure that the thought process was that the senior committee would reach their end goal and absolve as a committee. Gary.
Yeah, I think that the problem has been that there were so many things we were doing. It was really hard to get people interested in going in one area. And I'm not sure this committee could be one where you chose a goal and that's all they're going to go for. If you're going to choose that they're going to build a care facility in Belgrade, and that's what they're going to do, then they could probably go for that. But we did other things like provide lists of things that elders would need, provide magnets for refrigerators with important numbers on it. So there are just all kinds of things that we did and we're doing. So I don't know how you'd get the committee centered in one area. And we did have a lot of members. And those members were very, very fleeting. They would come, be interested in a little area, and then they would go away. And I thought that was not particularly good, but it was the way it was. It's kind of a difficult proposition to keep a core group interested in this because there are so many things that could be done and probably should be done. And it was formed as an ad hoc committee initially because we didn't want a lot of guidance from anybody. And I'm not sure the board could give guidance in areas. They may be able to advise or say you can't do that, but it certainly is an area where there's just lots of things going on all the time. That's all I have to say about it.
And Tasha actually, she filled out an application, I think it was last fall. And so she filled out a formal application. So she was formally appointed by the Board of Select Persons, which no one else has been. So anyway, those are maybe some things that we might look at changing.
well, and that's why it kind of feels like maybe we do need a little bit of an overhaul. Because I don't remember seeing like updates as to even what was being done. I didn't realize there have been magnets done. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But
Gary did a lot of the work, the magnets. He looked into all of that. We did flyers, trifold flyers, giving seniors options on where they could look for help for certain things that they needed or there was a need for. Yeah, Gary did a lot of work. I would say that he did the AARP. We started doing AARP survey so we could become certified to receive grants. Am I correct, Gary, from AARP?
so
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if what we need is maybe a review of what's been done and and I don't know, do we need to set up co-chairs ahead of time? But I think maybe we need to rethink the committee and how it's done. And make it a formal committee, and what are some of the goals? And maybe tighten it up a little bit around it, just because I feel bad that I wasn't aware you had done so much work on it. Because I don't know if updates were being given or who they were being given to, but I don't remember getting a lot of updates on it. Does
Yeah,
that
I think that's a good idea, and that's something that we can do. And we have put out feelers to those people who had been attending meetings. Like Gary said, it was very sporadic. Some people would come to 1 or 2 meetings and not come back again. So we have been putting out some feelers to see if the individuals that initially were attending were still interested, and we do have some interest. And so maybe we can revise the charter or the bylaws. I'm not sure what we're going to call them. And then have people fill out applications. Is that
Yeah.
what you'd like to see?
So at this point, there's no chairperson, but there's not been a dissolution of the committee. So the board has the authority to authorize the appointment of both yourself and Tasha Stevens as co-chairpersons of the Ad hoc Committee on Senior Resources. So I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on that? All right, seeing.
Tasha's trying to get on, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
She didn't know ahead of time. I just happened to look at the agenda and saw we were on. I said, Tasha.
If we just send her the link, she can get right on if you need it.
So if it's an ad hoc committee, then it starts up for a specific purpose or to look at a specific problem. And then if it seems like it's an ongoing concern, then it would become a standing committee.
Could be.
And was there a charge from the town, or how did the ad hoc committee get started?
Yeah.
Was it Denny Keschel who started the senior committee? When
It was Denny Cashel and myself, yes.
Okay.
Yep,
Because Denny had the idea of senior housing in town.
that's right.
Okay. And so was the ad hoc committee formed specifically to look at senior housing or to look at a broad aspect?
Look at everything that, those things that seniors need in order to be more safe in their homes, in order to be, we turned the term resources it's the Senior Resources Committee. Resources has to do with all of those things, and there are hundreds of them that are available to seniors to make their lives easier. Morning calls. There's a whole group that has a website for seniors who are looking for roommates, other seniors, which makes a ton of sense. And so we got all of those together in a folder, in a trifold, and we gave out lots of them.
Yeah.
But the idea was just to get those resources out with long-term goals of a place to live in Belgrade and a senior center.
So if Mary and Tasha are willing to be co-chairs, then you could start out by having some sort of a public, a public meeting to see who's interested in reforming the committee. And setting some goals for,
So
or
Lily,
some ideas for moving forward.
and Lily Schubert, the recreation director, she's actually was one of our more regular participants, wouldn't you say, Gary? And, yeah, and I know that she does have some programs going on down to the Center for Seniors, but we have spoken to her and she wants to continue, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see how it was hard during COVID when everything just came to a halt. So, you know, now it's getting restarted post-COVID, it seems.
All right, so I don't see that Tasha's able to get on. Is that?
You're fine.
What's that?
I sent her the link this morning. Right.
I think you're fine. You can move on.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to approve Mary and Tasha as co-chairs of the Ad hoc Committee on Senior Resources. So there's no further discussion. So Ricky,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Ernie?
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses. All right, ladies, take the reins, and if you don't mind, the first charge will be, let's take a look at this charter and let's tweak it. And maybe give us an update on what's been done. I was kind of, I don't know. I didn't know. That's how that is. Okay,
Will do.
thank you. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into it now that I know.
Yeah, there has been a lot of work.
All right, so next up we
Thank you,
have,
Gary.
thank you to everybody who's been doing it. All right, next up we have discussion and consideration of the snow plowing contract. Take a motion to open that agenda item.
Albeit,
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Okay. Everybody is bobbled around because other people have come in, so I was trying to find everybody. Okay, so we put out the RFP for proposals, RFP for snow plowing, sanding, and ice control, and we had just the one bid. And it's the Warren Brothers who's done it for us for several years now. With quite a jump over where we've been in the past. Is there anyone here? I don't see anyone from the Warren Brothers. Do they know that we were doing this evening?
Yes, I sent them multiple notices.
Well, they're the only bid, and they've always done great work, and it appears like this is our only option, and it's a great option in terms of the service that they provided. But I'll tell you right now, if this is the last bid they're going to do for us, we got a tall mountain to climb to find somebody to take their place, and I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know if Ricky has any ideas, or who knows.
Yeah. Bruce, did you have something?
How much an increase is it, Melanie?
35,000. So over the high, what we spent this year was 261, which was year 3 of the contract. And it jumps to 296 for the first year of the contract next year, which is a $35,000 increase. And then it looks like it goes up 7,000 over that for the next year, and then 10,000 for the third year.
Okay.
So the final year of it would be 314,000. And they refused to bid on the alternate proposal for the state roads. So we have to figure that piece out too, if that comes to fruition. So Jack? We can't hear you, Jack.
Unmute, Jack.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
That was the question I was going to ask, and you've answered it.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I guess, Ernie, are you making a motion that we accept the Warren Brothers contract for the next 3 years?
Yes.
All
I'll
right,
second it.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that portion? All right, seeing none. Ricky,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses, no nos.
What do you, just to ask the question, what do you suppose 3 years from now we're gonna do if they don't bid on this? I mean, how do we just try to find somebody else to bid on it, or probably in the next 3 years, we should encourage somebody to step up. I don't know. It's hard to, it's a lot of equipment, a lot of time, a lot of personnel. It's a lot of work. We're lucky to have them right now for the next 3 years.
And they do other towns as well? They don't do just Belgrade?
No.
No, they just do Belgrade.
Oh, they
And
do.
in fact, they are not Belgrade residents. They actually
Yeah.
live in Smithfield, but
Yeah.
they said it's a real hassle to plow your own hometown.
Mm,
So I think Ernie raises a good question. I don't know that we need to plumb into it very deeply tonight, but I do think that we do need to start a conversation here pretty shortly so we can sort of figure out what our options are and whether or not we may end up in the plowing business, not necessarily by choice, but by necessity. And if that's the case, then how do we go about doing that?
Mhm.
Yeah, we looked at in the past if the town of Belgrade was to establish their own public works department, and that would be what we would have to do. And it was cost prohibitive for a town our size, which is why we've contracted out.
I'm not sure that's absolutely. I mean, you go around the state of Maine and look at some of the small towns that have got their own town crew. There's a lot of there, and I've been noticing more and more.
Oh, you look at Sydney.
The first, well, in fact, Sydney came and talked to this town back probably 35 years ago, came to town meeting, and they didn't even give them a chance to talk. So there you go.
Yeah, well, and I think, Rick, that's sort of where my mind went. First of all, are there opportunities for us to collaborate with other communities to have a joint plowing operation?
They've looked at that too. That didn't go very far.
We probably have to look at it again.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to, 3 years from now, we're gonna have to, or prior to 3 years from now, we're gonna have to have our T's crossed and our I's dotted, because Warren Brothers doesn't step up to do this, then, we're gonna have to figure out something.
Yeah, and I would say, Ernie, we're probably going to have to figure this out within the next year and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure. And we don't want to be like Mercer, who, the select people are out plowing the roads. I mean, I love to plow, but just, it's not going to work.
Don't put me on the list.
Jack has his hand up again.
Yeah, I just wanted, Anthony, do we have like a rolling list? Like we used to have a whiteboard and stuff that wasn't covered or stuff that we didn't want to forget to put on an upcoming agenda when we had kind of a light agenda. Do we still have sort of a working from list like that we can make sure that this gets added to, and maybe if in October we have a light agenda that we start generating some ideas?
Yeah, and I think this would be a good thing for the roads committee to start discussing immediately as well.
And we also want to figure out about the alternate proposal for those roads in case something shakes out with DOT in the next 3 years.
Right.
So that's another one too. Jack?
I was just going to say that the road committee had this conversation a year ago, and it's just a year closer to the cliff we're going to find ourselves in. Less than 3 years from now, because we have to get a contract well ahead of the start of the snow season.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, well, and if it's a matter of acquiring some equipment, we're going to need some time in order to plan for that as well.
Yep.
Maybe we want to keep 6.5 instead of getting rid of it and put a plow and a dump body on it.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, so next up, we have the discussion and consideration of acquiring a transfer station office. So I'll take a motion to open that item.
A bit.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Ken is here. Ken, you want to lead on this one?
Sure. I was trying to remain invisible, but I guess not. Okay. Yeah, we budgeted $10,000 to purchase the lumber from Hammond Lumber to build a new office. The prices of lumber are still, according to them, about double what it would have been last year when we originally priced it out. So we came across a 10 by 16 shed, 2 by 4 construction, 2 by 6 floors, all made, delivered to us for $4,000. So we would still have to, purchase the windows and door and insulation, interior walls. And I believe Anthony gave you I don't have it in front of me, the estimate from Hammond Lumber. Bob the plumber and Generators of Maine for the electrical work.
No, I don't see anything in here for installing the stuff. And when you and I had spoken about it, we agreed that the folks working in the town were limited with available time to be working on building this office. So if they're going to be converting it and installing windows and installation and putting interior walls in, where are we going to come up with that?
That's probably about a quarter of the time of actually building, if that much of the time, rather than building the whole structure. So we wouldn't have to build the structure. Not to mention, it is kind of cost prohibitive to even buy the lumber at this point.
To speak to that, Melanie, I would think, it's like everything else, it's a matter of priorities. And so if we were to acquire this building, probably in the early fall, once we're doing less mowing, this would move up the list of priorities, and we would try to get this thing finished out before the weather made it much more of a challenge.
It's also something they can do on rainy days or things like that if they're inside.
Would it be
That's true.
insulating the floor as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and we think that town staff can accomplish that within their normal working hours and not have to add additional time?
Oh, I think so, certainly.
Tom has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
So who are we buying the shed from?
Bono and Sons.
No, I mean, just thumbing through Uncle Henry's and places like that, aren't there sheds available that are much more finished, I think, than what we're talking about? I mean, they already have the windows installed and they look pretty nice.
Are they delivered? I don't know what you saw, Tom.
Have we,
Well, I
have we
mean,
checked into that at all, Kenny? I mean, like what?
No, I haven't
comparable-
checked. I have not checked Uncle Henry's, no.
Yeah, maybe that's something we should do. Thanks, Tom. That's a good idea.
I mean, you
A
know,
lot,
sometimes, yeah, go ahead,
a lot
Ken,
of,
sorry.
I'm sorry, a lot of those sheds are sheds and they're 6-foot ceilings, which are really low. If it's just a shed, these are 7.5-foot ceilings, which makes a huge difference.
I can't think of the name of the company, but it's up near Bangor. They make anything from prefab buildings to storage buildings for people like me. And they were like prefabbing sheds like crazy on site. And I'll have to kick my memory around to basically come up with a name, but I'll be happy to send it to you.
Newport.
Oh, Newport Structures. My wife has a better memory.
So do you think, Tom, that we could come in with something that's a little more close to finished for the
I
10,000
bu-
that we originally budgeted?
I believe so. I don't know. I think it's worth looking at. I don't know. You know, obviously, the more you get, the more quality you build into it up front, the more it's going to cost, I would assume. But I believe it would be a potentially better option. It's definitely worth exploring.
Melanie,
Yes.
up in Unity, the Amish people, they built some beautiful buildings. The Amish up there, they built some beautiful buildings. They're all finished off. They got windows, doors. I mean, it's all done. So that might be something you want to look at.
I believe Newport Structures does have a significant Amish connection, but I don't know what the details
Okay.
are.
Yep. Okay.
I know that a year ago or so, before we thought about building it, we did look into some of these, and the Amish was one of them. Unfortunately, they didn't get. I know that Chris Duzel called them, and we never got an answer back from them on a price of a structure.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly who it was. It could have been any one of them.
I will say they do a nice job, and I've seen a lot of their buildings, and they're finished. You know, depends what you want paid for. If you want to pay for it all finished, or if you want to finish the interior yourself. But they do make some nice structures.
And
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, if you go to www.newportstructuresmaine.com, they've got some pretty nice pictures of stuff that basically looks like you could live in.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
Tom, if you're already on there, can you put in a 10 by 16?
I'm not sure if I can come up with pricing. It does have something in here about customizing.
Bruce Fluid just come on and said down by Dick Condon's in Chelsea, there's a place down there that's got a bunch of them built too.
Yeah, I was just looking at their website. It's New England Rent to Own LLC.
I was wondering if it was the rent to own. That's who we were thinking of too.
So should this go back to the transfer committee for checking out some other options?
Well, and Ken,
What's the delivery time? Because, you know, there could be a lag time on this, and we certainly want to have it before the weather gets too cold, right, Ken?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's one of the things. Bono and Sons, they only have this one shed that they bought a property. The shed was on it, and they're looking to sell it. It's kind of time sensitive because they do have other people looking at it. So they want to know as soon as possible whether or not they're going to take it and deliver it to us.
That shed, I'm looking at the picture of that shed on that New England Rent to Own LLC. It's the exact same shed. So they're probably the ones that built it.
Oh, it's very possible.
how much was that shed on the rent to own, Dan?
It says call for quote. So, I mean, we got to be able to call them tomorrow and find out how much that shed was.
So are we saying we don't want to take the $4,000 shed off Bono and Sons hands? We want to take some time and see if we can come up with one that's already done with the electrical for 10,000 or less?
Bruce got his hand up by him.
Yep, Bruce?
Okay, so the Newport sheds, I'm on their website, and I went down through just looking at just regular sheds, just plain Jane sheds, no insulation, no nothing. A 10 by 16 shed, $5,075. That's not a metal roof, that's an asphalt roof.
Bruce, does that include delivery?
Sometimes it does.
I can't find that on there anyways.
Bruce, I think it does within so many miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just a plain Jane shed, 10 by 16, so that's $1,000 more than what this shed is.
Right, so you still gotta insulate it.
Right, even if you gotta insulate it from them too.
Right, and finish the interior.
Right,
Yep,
and that's cash price. That's,
yep.
Same kind of construction, 2x4, 2x6 floor.
I can't find that, Ernie. I just found a quick price sheet.
Well, we're kind of in the ballpark, I guess. I mean, you know, there's some aspects of the Bono and Son building with the metal roof that,
And it is only 6 foot walls.
ceiling, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Bono and Son building is, what, 7.5?
I believe it's 7.5. I couldn't reach the ceiling standing inside of it. I mean, I'm short, but I'm not that short.
I'm looking at the specs on that New England rent to own, and like I said, it's the same thing. It's 7 foot 3 inches utility wall height.
Right, right.
Pine tongue and groove siding, 2x6 floor stringers. I'd say it's the same shed that they build. I'd say it's one of theirs.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's their standard size.
And it's $1,000 more new from them.
Well, the New England one doesn't have prices. You'd have to call them.
So I would have to assume that the ones that have windows and doors are gonna be quite a bit more.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna pay for those windows and doors. I mean,
Right.
depending on the level of quality of those windows and doors that you want.
Melanie,
Insulation.
Michael Barrett had a question.
Sorry, Mike?
Yeah, I didn't really have a question. I do have a question for Kenny, actually. Isn't there a time limitation on this offer?
Yeah, that's what we were just discussing, is that they do have other people waiting to purchase it, and they were waiting for this meeting to see if we were gonna take it.
It's sounding to me like to find a comparable building that's more finished, it's going to cost more money than we're going to have to put out for this situation, in which case we may lose out on the $4,000 building.
Yeah. I think my hesitation is, and I did ask Kenny to kind of bring this forward to the board and figure some of the pieces out. My hesitation is that it's more than what we budgeted for. And when we had the whole discussion about what we could do for $10,000, it included having it be ready to go for 10. So now we're looking at pulling 2765 someplace else in the budget. And we keep reiterating that the budget overall for the departments is not a slush fund. We don't just laterally slide. So if we've budgeted a certain amount for something, then we have to try to stay within that budgeted amount so that we're not pulling from other sources and then possibly cutting ourselves short there. And I know $2,700 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it's more money than what we budgeted.
Yeah, and I think though, one thing that's always important to keep in mind with the budget is that, things change throughout the course of a year. And I think when we first started talking about this building, at least 2 years ago, I think we were talking about $10,000 perhaps at the time, or maybe it was $7,000 then, and we raised it to 10, and now we know what the cost of materials has done in the wake of the pandemic. And so, but just as a reminder, even with the warrant article that voters approved for solid waste, they approved a bottom line figure of $268,800.
Right,
And so-
Anthony, but they approve a bottom line figure based on the numbers that we give them throughout the budget.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Melanie, is in that warrant article, there was none of that detail. The transfer station budget presented to the voters is just one figure, and that figure is for the total cost of the transfer station.
Well,
And
the
so,
school budget is the same, Anthony. We vote on a bottom line budget, but then we can go in and take a look at the budget and say, so this much is for teachers, this much is for admin, this much is for this, this, and this. And that's where adjustments can be made. So I'm saying that, yes, the voters vote on a bottom line, but they vote on the bottom line because if they request the backup for it, we have it because we've gone through that.
and fair enough, but also keep in mind that you could go throughout our budget and you're going to find line items that are going to be over budget at the end of the year because circumstances happen. And let's just take facility maintenance, for instance. And, you know, we have to make, well, last year we had to replace, what was it, Bruce? A motor for the water well at the Lakes Fire Station. And so that is not something that we had budgeted for. It was something that cropped up over the course of the year. We addressed it. We overspent one particular line item, but we underspent in other line items in order to ensure that we stayed within the facility maintenance budget. And I think the same concept is at play here. Yes, we would overspend some other line item by $2,700, although maybe not. But as long as we are within that $268,800 budget, ultimately that's what the voters approve. They're not approving the line item detail, they're approving that bottom line figure.
Okay. Bruce, to install the heating, is that just installing the propane?
The heater, that's the heater and installation.
Okay, so we already have a heater picked out. Is there a heater in the current building that's not usable?
It's electric.
It's electric, okay,
This is a bigger building, so it's gonna put an eye in.
okay.
And the other question I had, the other thing I was bringing up, I had my hand up for was, you're talking about line items, and I've been bringing this up meeting after meeting after meeting. If you're gonna go on line items, you got something in your warrant that's gonna be pushing over a line, pretty close to going over a line item. If you're gonna do this for one entity, then you need to do it right across the board, and that includes general government. If you guys gonna, you know, hold line items, and you guys need to hold line items right across the board, not just pick one budget and say, we're gonna stick with a line item. You're gonna have to do it right across the board.
Right, no, I'm just saying that when we budget for something and then and it happens more often, I think, with the transfer station is where I see it a little bit more, where, and I don't know if it's that we don't have a great game plan, like a long-term plan or exactly what it is, but it's one that sort of pops out sometimes, I guess.
Unfortunately, we can't control COVID.
Oh, I
That's
know.
what's driving everything right now.
And I will say this without hesitation, that the transfer station budget, when it comes to our departmental budgets, is the least of my concerns. Kenny always manages to come in under budget on his expenses, and we always, and you know, we're doing great this year as far as the revenues go. So, you know, I would not be recommending that we spend the additional $2,700 if I thought that it was going to create some sort of financial crunch or burden within the transfer station budget. I think Kenny is very miserly in how he runs his operation. I say that as a compliment. He squeezes every penny he possibly can out there. And that's one of the things I appreciate about him as a departmental director.
You know, we put this building off for years. and it's a substandard building. It's becoming unsafe. I mean, years ago, we wanted to buy the lumber for this when lumber was cheaper. We had a plan to do that, and that was shot down. And so now here we are, years later. A couple of years later, and we have to do something about this building. And you know, we have the money to do it. It needs to be done. And you know, and every time we talk about this, it's somehow the transfer station committee is made to be shown to be somewhat irresponsible with the way they spend their money, and they don't.
Ernie,
They're very
stop.
good at what they
Ernie,
do.
stop.
I've had enough of this.
Ernie, I'm
Jesus,
putting the
get this
gavel
done.
Stop.
Yeah,
That's enough.
fix this.
Anthony, can you?
You
mute
have put
the
this
meeting?
off way too long. Get it done.
Okay, so from now on, if we're doing a hybrid meeting, the chairperson also needs to be able to mute people, because that was a gavel. Any further discussion? Seeing that, I'll take a motion. I make a motion that we accept the building from Bono and Sons.
I second.
And the rest that it entails. So it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? No. Ricky?
Let's buy it and get this.
Okay, Dan?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Ernie? Anthony, can he unmute himself now, or is that up to you?
Yeah, he indicated yes.
Okay. Ernie, on this needs to be a roll call.
Yes.
Okay, 5 yeses, 0 nos. Do we have a plan, Ken, for the old building? Is it something that can be refabbed?
Yeah, we're gonna try to move it over and use it as part of the too good to throw away. If not, then if it falls apart and moving it, which it might, because the floor is kind of rotting out, so don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, if the floor,
If this
Yeah.
thing is unsafe, we need to get rid of it.
exactly, because remember we had that lovely condemned trailer there for years.
Get rid of it.
It'll go in. How about the bulky waste?
Probably full of mold.
Wherever you want to put it, get rid of it.
All right.
Done.
Now, next
All
up,
right,
we have the
have a good
appointment
night.
of the town's harbor master. Thank you, Ken. So I'll take a motion to open that item.
So be it.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? All right, in the wake of the voters' approval of the moorings ordinance, we failed to formally appoint a harbor master per the requirements of state law and of section 9 of the ordinance. The ordinance says the town's code enforcement officer may also serve as the harbor master. I make a motion that we appoint Gary Fuller, our code enforcement officer, as the town's harbor master.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Bruce?
What are we doing for a vote for the harbor master?
So, of course, Bruce, the jurisdiction of the town extends only 200 feet from the shoreline. And so our plan was to try to enforce this from the shore. If it becomes necessary to get a boat, I think we have a couple of potential options. You know, perhaps the fire department would allow us to use their boat. I think we probably have some folks who would allow us to use their boat on Great Pond and So far it hasn't yet been a burden, but should it become one, then at some future point we may have to, get a small aluminum boat with a low horsepower engine.
Gary,
Yes.
we've got some kayaks and canoes available. Nothing? Okay, apparently Gary does not want to use a canoe or kayak for that.
And we're putting a horse before the cat. I mean, the cat before the horse. I'm sorry. We don't have a plan. This was just shoved down our throats again. I'm going to vote against this. I think this is totally ridiculous.
All right.
We need to have a harbor master if we have a mooring ordinance, don't we? I mean, isn't that the town voted for a mooring ordinance? So we have to have a harbor master. Isn't
I voted against the mooring ordinance. So
I understand. Okay, your vote is legitimate. It's great. So, but by some sort of rule or law, we have to have a harbor master, right?
The harbor master has to be certified. He has to have training.
Okay.
And he's also enforced with he's also enforced with enforcing all the laws of the boating laws.
Gary, do you want to be harbor master?
I don't care. What they should have done though, what you should have done is not called me a harbor master. It's called me a mooring moron or something other than a harbor master. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So harbor master is a term that is required by the law.
Right.
So if you do have a mooring ordinance, you must appoint a harbor master, and it's a role that Gary's currently filling in the town of Sydney for that community as well.
Yeah, but we didn't call me a harbor master in Sydney. What we did was we called him a mooring. Oh, I can't remember.
Mooring ordinance enforcer?
Yeah, mooring ordinance enforcer. And you could have said in your ordinance that the code enforcement officer could enforce your mooring ordinance. But when you call it a harbor master, it's a whole different ballgame.
No, and our mooring ordinance does say exactly that, Gary.
So, I don't know.
Well, the only time this is really going to come into play is when, somebody, violates the mooring ordinance, which, is a rarity. Hasn't really happened as of yet. But, it's put there in by the town, the people that voted for it,
right.
To potentially, fix a problem. If somebody moves a 30-foot, 40-foot houseboat into place in front of somebody's property. And
right.
That's, it's kind of a rarity where it's going to happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not going to happen very often.
No, but I mean, yet, where we have this ordinance, we do have to enforce it when somebody, flagrantly violates it. And so, that's where you would come in. And if you're willing to, get the training, and, I will refer to you as harbor master from now on. It's just sort of
and that's fine. I mean, I don't mind doing this, but I've got to have training, and I've got to be certified.
So, needs to be done.
And just as a reminder, the main portion of our mooring ordinance, at least in the minds of the mooring committee that worked on this, relates to houseboats. And so that's something we're easily going to be able to see if that's on the lake, because it will be within 200 feet of our shoreline.
Sure.
Right. No, and I understand that, but you know how many how many moorings there are on Great Pond?
I bet you're going to find out and let us know.
I mean, there is a ton of them. There's a ton.
But then what we have to do is the ones that are grandfathered and then the ones that are new. So we are
Right.
gonna, yeah,
And so this will be very similar to code enforcement, where we'll be responding to a complaint if we receive a complaint.
Yeah, exactly. I wish you, I do wish you would have just said that the code enforcement officer would have enforced this and not titled me as a harbor master.
Isn't that according to the law, not just our ordinance?
No.
Yeah, yes, well, that is correct, actually, Barbara. And this is something that when we talked with the town's attorney, when he did his review, he stated that, we had to have a section in there related to the harbor master, because under state law, a harbor master must enforce the mooring ordinance.
Okay.
And I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but doesn't it say that the code enforcement officer can serve as the harbor master in the ordinance?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
which is what we're doing now.
The other thing we might want to do though, before we appoint Gary, is we may want to come up with specific policy, because I'm looking at the law right now. And unless we've got a written policy prohibiting him from carrying a gun and making arrests, it's part of the harbor master's duty. So.
Yeah, I carry a gun.
Yeah, we may want to sit down and come up with a policy.
I think
Right
you guys
now,
are getting ahead of yourselves. I think that a policy needs to be made, and I think the taxpayers need to be a little bit more when the taxpayers voted for this ordinance, I don't think they realized that it was going to be this intense, that you're going to have a harbor master and so on and so forth. And I think you need to, get some guidelines. It's just like any other entity in town, that you have your committees that go, set up what the harbor master's responsibilities are gonna be and bring it to the board for approval.
Exactly right, Bruce. And the state law is pretty clear. It says that the harbor master has to enforce all laws of the state of Maine when it comes to boating.
All I've got here, it says a harbor master may not make arrests or carry a firearm unless they've completed the training requirements prescribed in Title 25.
Right.
So it doesn't say that you have to carry a gun. It doesn't say
No.
you.
No, but what it does say is municipal officers may prohibit the harbor master from making an arrest or carrying a gun, which means we have to have a policy in place because we control the harbor master.
But we don't have a policy in place.
Right.
Okay.
It's bullet point 4 on the harbor master thing.
I
Yeah,
read that.
I'm looking at the same thing.
So we don't have a policy in place.
Yeah.
Well, we can develop one if we need one.
In general, if the harbor master would work with game wardens, state police, if there's a real violation, they're the ones carrying the guns that are going to do the enforcing, more or less.
Exactly.
But with an ordinance, we're able to enforce that rule. It's kind of like when we talked about parking before.
Yeah.
You can't really enforce parking because we don't have a parking ordinance. So even if we call the police and say this guy's parked incorrectly, he can't really, the cops can't really do anything about it because we don't have an ordinance for them to enforce. So the same was true recently of posted roads. We didn't really have an ordinance. So if somebody was driving on a posted road when they shouldn't have been, we can't really enforce it. So, we changed that, and the voters have changed this, have adopted this mooring ordinance. So
and I understand that, but it does
that
say
needs to be part of the policy, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but it does say, state law says that the harbor master must enforce all laws of the state of Maine boating laws.
And that's probably going. I get your point, Gary, in that's probably a little beyond you. I mean, you're not a game warden.
And I understand that, but that is what the state law says.
Yeah, I get it. So that hence why you don't really want to be called a harbor master. And if there was a way to
All you had to do,
Down,
all you
lighten
had
this
to do was say that the code enforcement officer will inspect all moorings.
Yeah.
And just don't, if you don't call me a harbor master, then we're good.
I'm
think.
comfortable with that, but and
So I guess I'd like to see then how Sydney has you doing the same stuff, Gary, and how they worded it.
They
'Cause
didn't call me a harbor master.
Well, they have to have something in writing because they've got to have they got to follow the same state laws that we do.
They called me a mooring monitor.
Is this something that we can refer back to the Lakes Committee?
No.
No.
No, because
I would just check with MMA and see how we need to word it and
Yeah.
how the policy needs to be written.
I mean,
can we change the title and still fulfill the obligations of what we're required to have pertaining to a mooring ordinance?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I'll take a motion. Can I take, I'll make a motion that we table this to the next meeting.
Okay.
Check with MMA for guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, Ricky,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ernie.
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses. Let's table that one till the next meeting. All right, so let's hang tight on that one. All right, next we have the discussion of a potential transition to a July 1 fiscal year. Take a motion to open that item.
Will be it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So Anthony, do you want to lead with this?
Certainly. So this is something that we've discussed before, and my sense is there's a consensus among the select board members that adopting a July 1 fiscal year makes good sense from a financial standpoint. And chiefly, I think those benefits are twofold. One is I think it would give greater clarity to our budgeting process, because right now we start our budget year on January 1, but we're not actually, the voters don't actually appropriate anything to be spent until March. And then we are waiting until June to find out what the county and the school expenses for the town are going to be. And then we finally commit taxes in July, and then we start collecting them and have about a 6-week window in which to collect those taxes. And so if our fiscal year aligned with that of the state, the school district, and the county, I think we would have greater clarity as to the big picture when it comes to our budget and all the expenses. Secondly, and this may be the even more important point, is we could save some money by adopting a July 1 fiscal year, because currently, because we collect taxes at the very end of our fiscal year and only for a 6-week period, we have to borrow money through the tax anticipation note during the course of the year. And last year we spent nearly $18,000 in interest costs. If we were to adopt a budget in June at a town meeting, if we were to commit taxes in July, we could immediately begin collecting taxes then, and we would have almost the entirety of the fiscal year in which to collect those taxes. And we could allow people to set up payment plans where they pay two times a year or on a quarterly basis or whatever. So we'd have a much even cash flow that would negate the need for a TAN. So those are the two benefits. But with benefits, there are also drawbacks. Those drawbacks would be that it would necessitate us passing 2 budgets within a 6-month period. That is, we'd have to pass a budget for January 1 through July 30th. It'd be a plain Jane, very vanilla, bare bones budget. And as soon as we pass that one, we'd have to be working on a second budget to carry us from July 1 through the following June 30th. So that would be, that put a little bit more pressure on the staff and perhaps our budget committee and the select board. It would also necessitate that people would pay essentially twice over the course of 18 months instead of twice over the course of 24 months, because they would pay that 6-month tax and then they would pay their taxes after taxes were committed again in July for that full year, although they could, pay that out over time. You'd be paying more often than you would over the course of that 18-month period. However, you'd still be paying the same amount that you would owe over that 18-month period. And then lastly, it would just simply represent a change from how we've always done things in Belgrade. As I mentioned, we would have to move our town meeting to June if we were to do this. But then again, I think this coming year, if we go back to a traditional town meeting, that will actually represent a change from how we've done things over the past 2 years. And so at least you guys have seen the result of the survey that I did back in 2019. And at least according to the people who responded to that survey, they are at least open to considering this. That said, the authority to set the fiscal year lies with the select board. So you do have the authority statutorily to set a different fiscal year if you wanted to. And I'm not seeking a decision tonight, mainly just having a conversation and getting some direction. The previous board wanted to put this to the voters. That would extend the amount of time before we could transition to this. And we would obviously have to engage in an information education campaign so that they could make an informed vote. But again, this is something that the select board could do itself. And it looks like we have a couple of members of our budget committee here, and I don't know if they want to say anything about it, but as I said, not looking for a decision tonight, but I think we should discuss if this is something we want to pursue and how we might go about doing that.
Well, and as I've said to you, for 10 years, I've been saying we needed to do this. But it's the 18 months that is the hurdle. And I do stand firm with, we need an education campaign, and it needs to be, the taxpayers have the right to decide how they do things. Bruce, you had your hand up, and then Jack.
My biggest thing is I'm not for it. My biggest thing is why can't we do tax payments now? Why isn't that offered at this point, for one? For two, the 18 months, I think making 2 tax payments in 18 months, I think is going to burden a lot of the taxpayers in town. A lot of the people, they need the 12 months to budget, to pay 1 year's taxes. Now you're going to ask them to pay, and I'd like to see how many towns in Maine that do go to the state fiscal year and how many towns are the same way we are. I think that should be a number. Towns our size are small, smaller, of course. Towns that are bigger than us, Augusta, the bigger towns, I can understand why they go the state fiscal year. It seems to work great for us at this point, other than, we have to take a TAN. But if we take payments or urge people to make payments throughout the year, we wouldn't have to take the TAN.
So I can address 2 questions that you've raised right there, Bruce. My research indicated that about 2/3 of towns across the state of Maine are on a July 1 fiscal year. So we're actually in the minority of towns that operate on a January 1 or any fiscal year other than July 1. The second reason is think about how things line up for us as far as why we can't take payments over the course of the year, because we start spending in January, but we don't commit taxes until July. And so, we've already lost 7 months of time over which we could be collecting taxes, and we haven't collected taxes because the tax rate has not yet been set. And so, we have a cutoff date in early September so that people can get their taxes in, and then after that, they start accruing interest. But December 31st, you can't make a payment on your 2021 taxes after December 31st. So, the way that our timeline lines up simply doesn't allow us to set up payment plans for people.
So
Does that make sense?
well, I have to say, Anthony, that's not the answer that I've got in the past when I've brought this up.
Okay.
I was told, one of the things I asked was why the town of Manchester folks can pay in one lump sum or they can pay it quarterly, and they have coupons that come with their tax book, with their tax bill. And I was told that we could not do a payment plan like that because our Trio system and where our tax bills were generated would not be able to do that. You couldn't put another sheet in there that had quarterly payment things that folks could use, because then that would increase how much it costs us to mail them out, and it wouldn't be able to be done the way it is now. And I was also told that we can take payments from people if they set it up themselves, that they always have the right to come into the town office and pay their taxes in increments over the year. So what I'm hearing now is that none of that's correct.
Well, and they can, so I will say a caveat, they can come in and prepay their taxes without knowing what their tax bill is. So, let's say you paid $2,000 last year and you don't want to wait until July to start paying off your taxes. You could come in and pay $100 a month towards that if you wanted to, beginning in January. So that is something that you could do. With Manchester, I don't know what their fiscal year is, but I'm going to assume if they have that sort of a payment plan, I'm going to assume that it is not a January 1. It probably is a July 1 fiscal year, but that's something I would have to check on and see. I have not heard the argument that that Trio won't allow that to happen. I'll look into that, but I'd be frankly surprised because a lot of towns across the state of Maine use Trio, and I got to believe that some of them are, if not a lot of them, are July 1 years, and that they're allowing people to pay off their taxes over the course of a couple of years. So those are two questions I'll have to do some research on.
So Melanie, Mary, so yeah, you can set up the tax club with Trio because I've done it before, and you can set up a tax club, but because of the way we haven't yet done our commitment, we don't know what that last payment's going to be. So what I've done is I've told people, went back when I was a tax collector, that you would have to contact us that last month to know what the final payment's going to be, because we haven't yet committed. So yeah, we can do a tax club, we can do coupons, but we don't know what your last payment's going to be. If taxes go up, then it's going to be obviously a higher amount, but yes, we can do monthly tax clubs. And so in Augusta, they do the tax clubs, and they are July 1st through June 30th. And also they're on that fiscal year, but there's a waiver if you're on the tax club to not pay any interest, is how they do it. So you don't have to pay any interest, but if you miss a payment, interest will start immediately. There are a number of different options that are available that way. But I think what Anthony's saying is to change it to the fiscal year will be more in line with what the state does. It will keep us in line with the school. Anyway, but.
Well, and it helps us to budget.
Yes.
Because we're not guessing.
Right.
Jack or Tom, I don't know who had your hand up first, so I'll start with Jack.
I think this is an idea I know this is an idea that's been batted around for as many years as I can recall. It's been a long, long time. I think it's time to bring it to a head. I think it's a good idea. I think it needs to have some flesh put on the bones as to a summary, as Anthony has pointed out, a body of what needs to be done in terms of the actual steps that have to be taken and the schedule for that. And I think there has to be a fiscal note attached to it, what it's going to cost to make this changeover, apart from the overall budget, but what it's going to cost to do the changeover this year, out of this year's budget, out of next year's budget, and then on an ongoing budget because it will have some effect on voting and other costs of doing it. But I think it will probably come out to be to the advantage of the town. That's my guess. But I would suggest to the board that the board ask the budget committee and the town manager to get together and put together a summary that can be shared with the town, and this go to a town meeting, the next town meeting, and let the town decide on it, because that's where you'll get either the acceptance or the rejection. I think if it's pushed through as a deal of the select board, there'll be a lot of grumbling about it. If the town votes on it, it'll put it to bed. And that would be my suggestion of procedure.
Yeah. Tom?
So my perspective is more as a taxpayer and a business owner. So the way I see this, and somebody can step in if I understand this incorrectly, is I presently pay about $5,000 in real estate taxes. And under this proposal, I would pay $7,500 one-time incremental or acceleration of roughly 50%. So that would be $2,500. So obviously I'm not too happy about that as a taxpayer. So the town saving $17,900, I'm coughing up $2,500, just me. So I wanted to make the point that right today, Belgrade makes all its obligations to RSU 18, the county, as well as the municipal. And I think as we just saw with the RSU 18, I mean, it's like they finished their fiscal year and they really didn't share much information. I do quick math where the town's potentially going to save $17,900 over $2 million. I make that out to be a 112-year payback. So, I mean, sure, it makes the town better, but you're asking me to cough up $2,500 for something that the town's getting a 112-year payback on. I don't consider that a good use of the taxpayer money.
So Tom, the 17,000 that you're saying that the town saves, because I think when we talked about this last year, if we'd been on the fiscal year instead of the calendar year, and if we didn't have to take the tan out every year, that there's a savings there of what this year was 18,000, but in years past it's been well over 18,000, been 30, 50. So are those, is that what you mean by the 17,000, and that is what we would have saved this year with the tan?
Correct. And I mean, I've made this point when Dennis Ketchel was town manager. I said, you know, you want to save $100 or whatever on the tan, but you make me pay $1,000 in real estate taxes. So from my perspective, it costing the taxpayer. You have to look at it from both sides. And now if I have to cough up 2,500, I could play devil's advocate and say, I'm not going to pay the tax when it's due. I'm going to basically let it slide. And then you're still going to have to borrow tan money on my $2,500. So how much would you really save? I mean, I think you're putting a real burden on the taxpayer for, I don't want to be a wise guy, but in some ways I see it as a solution looking for a problem. I don't see that the problem is really that bad. You pay, you meet all the obligations.
Can I just point out, I'm trying to understand a little bit, Tom, I get your point, but $5,000 a year in taxes, let's say that's the figure, that's $416 a month. So $7,500 in taxes over 18 months is still $416 a month. So I mean, it's not like you're paying more per month or more in taxes. You're just paying it, you know, over a different period of time, only for an 18-month window to get onto this fiscal year change, which it just seems to me like if the town could save 15 to whatever, depending on interest rates in TAN interest fees, it's almost a no-brainer. I mean, if we're talking about how we could save $15,000 to $25,000 in any budget in any department in this town, it would almost everybody would shoot their hand up in the air and say, yeah, I vote for that. And so the idea that every year, because we're not on this different fiscal year, we're paying 15 to 20 to 25,000, depending on the interest rates, that we don't need to pay, because if we were on this other fiscal year, we wouldn't have to pay that. Ultimately it could, I'm not saying it will, but it could lower your taxes, if we weren't paying for that.
Well, I think you need to look at it a different way and say, okay, voters, we're going to raise your taxes 50% for 1 year. How is that going to fall?
But it's the same amount per month. It's not
Oh.
an increase in taxes, isn't it? I mean,
I have to come up with the $2,500 sooner than I would have. I mean, it's
respectfully, Tom, I disagree with that, and it's because you'd make your one-time payment with your 6-month budget, but then once you hit July 1, you could make your $5,000 payment over the course of multiple payments, whether you wanted to do that quarterly, monthly, or semi-annually. So it's not as if we would demand all of that $5,000 in one fell swoop. You'd be able to pay that over the course of 12 months, which right now you don't even have the luxury of doing. You got to pay within a 6-week window.
Well, see, this is why I need a clarification. So when I file my taxes, is there 1 year that I'm going to pay $7,500 in taxes?
And
Let me think. Let me.
No,
I don't.
it's 18
well,
months.
I guess it depends. I guess it depends, Tom, as to how you paid those taxes. So let's say you paid your 6-month taxes in one lump sum, and then on July 3rd you paid for the entire full year, coming year, in one lump sum. Then on your income taxes, yes, you would say that you had paid $7,500 in taxes in that federal tax year to the town of Belgrade.
I mean, I don't see how the town's going to save anything on this TAN unless they basically suck in $2 million or whatever from the taxpayers sooner than they would have.
Well, and that has been the experience of other towns that have adopted a July 1 fiscal year, is their cash flow is steadier throughout the year, as opposed to ours spikes up in August and then immediately plummets right back down to earth. And so because we're not going to collect taxes again, any taxes, for another year, that's why we have to get the TAN in order to try to even out that cash flow.
But I think the TAN, I mean, is such an incredibly low interest rate that you're focusing on the wrong thing. And you're saying my paying taxes has no cost. So
Yeah,
I respectfully disagree.
All right, hang on, guys. Bruce had his hand up.
Okay, so get back to the payment thing, okay? If we've changed the fiscal, I guess I can't get it into my small brain for some reason, but by hearing what Mary's saying, we could do a payment plan where we are now, and just the last payment may be more of a payment. If we advertise that, hey, we will start doing payments for it, you probably wouldn't have to take a TAN note. You probably could do it on the same fiscal year we have now. I'm the same way as Tom. I'm not in agreement to doing this. I was totally against it when Dennis Ketchel brought it up years ago. I fought it then, and I will fight it tooth and nail now. I don't think, and the other thing I hear, constantly every time at meetings, why do we want to be the same as the next town to us, or why do we want to follow suit to the state or follow suit to RSU 18? We are our own town. We can work through, if we can, I don't see the difference. Saying if we switch the fiscal year, when is the taxes going to be due in full?
So let me look at something real quick here. Because I was looking on the town of Manchester. So the town of Manchester does actually have a July 1 fiscal year.
Yes, they do.
And I'm looking at one of their tax bills that they have posted online. And I'm looking for, okay, so they commit taxes in July, and interest doesn't begin on their tax payments until April the 16th. So they have from July until the following mid-April to collect taxes.
So this is my question. If that's the case, so you're going to do that, there's a lot of questions here. It's got to be answered, because if that's the case, you can do that, the change in the fiscal year. Why can't you do that the way we are now? I don't understand that.
Yeah, and I think it's just as Mary explained it, Bruce, that people could make more prepayments on a regular basis. They just wouldn't know sort of what the end amount that they would owe is until sort of near the end of our fiscal year.
Right, but the other part I'm getting at is the interest part of it. Is so you guys just committed taxes, they're going to be due in September, and then you start paying interest. Well, with a fiscal year, you're giving everybody 10 months to do that. Why can't you do that now? That's what us as business people and taxpayers in this town cannot understand.
Well, I guess, to be perfectly blunt, Bruce, that is something that we could do. Now, I do think as Ernie pointed out, we're still going to be spending interest on the TAN. And yes, and so yes, but and so right now, interest rates are at historically low levels, but that's not to say that will be the case next year or the year after or the year after that. I mean, surely interest rates are going to go up at some point, and even if they go up to 2 or 3%, then that $18,000 is going to be kind of double what it is right now.
All right. I think.
Ricky's got his hand up.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Anthony, do we take the money now, the TAN money, when we get it? What do we do with it?
We put it into our operating accounts. So it essentially goes into our checking account, Rick. The account with Andros Goggin from which we pull, we pay all of our bills.
Okay. What used to happen, that used to go into a account that earns some interest.
Mm-hmm.
So that it used to be that we paid very little interest.
Yeah, yeah,
They made
and
money
so
on that, which you're not technically supposed to do, but everybody does it. And so the money was almost free money.
Well,
we made some money on it.
Yeah, well, and the same thing happens now. So it goes into our operating account, which currently is earning 0.3% interest, and we move some of that into a sweep account, which earns 0.35% interest, and so that recoups some of what we pay in interest cost, but I don't recall exactly what our interest costs were this year for the TAN, but it was a little bit above 1%. So it's not necessarily a break-even proposition. I will say that one thing that I learned this year that I think we should do next year is we've typically collected that in one lump sum. There also is an option just to pull it as we need it, and I think that would be the better option for us. That way, we're only paying interest on what it is that we actually pull and need at that time, as opposed to the entire amount.
I was going to suggest that too.
So kind of like a home equity line of credit. We just pay interest
Yes,
what we use.
yeah. And it's just something I learned this year because, again, it's how we've operated in the past. We've always just pulled the whole lump sum, but once I learned a little bit more about it, you're right, Rick, that's the road that we should be going.
And I'm gonna just a little bit on this. I went after discount on your taxes so people would pay them early so that we didn't have to borrow money. That was my pet peeve when I first got on the board. It took me 3 years to get it through my thick head that costs you money. Back then, and that was quite a while ago, Pam Murray took me in her office one day and said, "You're gonna learn this." And it was gonna cost the taxpayers $60,000 more we had to put in a budget to save 1% on your taxes. I mean, that's great. If you want to pay your taxes early, you got 1% off. But if Dan didn't want to pay his early, town paid for it. So it wasn't a deal. It was, so I changed my mind real quick when I found out.
Barbara?
Yeah, just wondering how complicated is that calculation of the last payment? If someone does set up a payment plan, but then the last payment has to be calculated, is that built into the system? Is that a manual calculation? How much does that impose on the staff as opposed to just being able to do a straight split throughout the year?
So Mary, are you able to answer that question?
Yeah, so what I've done in the past is that we used to have people that would come in after their September payment and they'd want to be put onto a tax club. And so I do up the coupons for 10 or 11 months. And by the time they were done with that 10th or 11th month, we knew what the taxes were. So it's not a calculation. It's already going to be in the computer. They're just going to have to get in touch to find out what that amount's going to be. So people can start that October, or they could start the next day after they make their September payment. We can calculate it that way based on the prior year. So it's because it's based on the prior year. If there's an increase in taxes, that's the problem.
Yeah, and Barbara, just so you know, that's how it's currently working right now. Our tax bills just went in the mail yesterday, but we have people who are already paying their taxes, and what they do is they either come by the town office or they call and say, "Can you tell me how much I owe in my taxes this year?" And we give them a figure and they come by and give us a check.
Thank you.
I think there's two facts about this that ring true to me, in that the rate that you pay in taxes per month does not change. And the current way we do business in this town is not sustainable without borrowing money via a TAN to pay our bills, which costs us interest, which is historically low right now, but yet we're at the mercy of interest rates. So, in order to, by switching to this, more sustainable fiscal year, we don't have to borrow that money. I mean, it's more sustainable. So, I mean, it's not technically meant to be a hardship on taxpayers, because the amount per month that you pay in taxes does not change. But the initially when those taxes are due, it will have some flux. But yet, it becomes after we make the change, a sustainable model of taxes paid, bills paid without paying interest. And it just seems like, I mean, there's an initial hurt, I guess, of, where we have to sort of rip off the Band-Aid to make this change. But yet, long term, it's best for the town. It falls into line with, 2/3 of the rest of the state, which eventually, more towns will be going to this, because we're not the only town that's having this discussion about changing to, the more sustainable yearly fiscal year. And That's, to me, that seems to be the best way to put it. That's,
And just to add, so I'm looking again at a bill from Manchester, and it looks like they break up their payments into 2 payments. So their tax bill looks almost exactly the same as ours. And then at the bottom, where, you know, we have 1 coupon, they have 2 coupons, and if people want to pay in 2 installments, half of it is due on October the 16th and of what would be 2021 this year. And the other, well, for them, it was October 16th of 2020 because their fiscal year began last July. And then the second payment was due on April the 16th of 2021. So that's just how they're doing it in Manchester. They're giving people the option to make 2 payments over the course of the year, six months apart.
All right. Well, I think we've beat that up as much as we can tonight. So let's move on to the discussion of a seasonal residence meeting.
Okay, so I tell you, but just so I have some direction. So I thought Jack made a good suggestion. What do you guys think about having the budget committee maybe study this a little bit more thoroughly and bringing something back to you guys? Does that sound like something that you would like to have them do?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think I'd just like to check a temperature of the board on whether they would want it to be a select board decision or a town meeting vote.
Town meeting.
Town meeting.
select board,
Okay, I say town meeing.
of course.
It doesn't matter to me either way. I mean,
Yeah.
we're elected to make the decisions, but if they want the public to do it, don't have a problem with it.
Okay,
I agree with Dan. I could go either way. I feel comfortable making the decision, but if everyone thinks we would have more of a buy-in from the town by involving people, we'd have to educate them one way or the other, whether it's, you know, after we make the decision or before.
right.
When it hits your pocketbook, you want to let the taxpayers decide.
Well, and that's just it. That's the tricky part for me, is that it does affect people more for a short period of time, but it doesn't affect them more in that short period of time. So, all right. So, moving on to the discussion of a seasonal residence meeting. Take a motion to open that item.
So be
So
it.
be it. Second.
Seconded. All those in favor? All right, so we've got to pick a date for the seasonal residence meeting.
Yes, and I want to make clear that we call it the seasonal residence meeting, but it's open to anybody.
Right. We just started it because they couldn't come to town meeting,
Correct.
and it gave them a chance to come while they were here. Does anybody have a day that works better?
A little Wednesday.
Wednesday?
'Cause I concur with the idea of not scheduling it on a Thursday to perhaps coincide with the music in the park, you know, which we've had pretty good success with, right?
You're gonna have to also look at, because it's gonna be a public meeting, we're gonna have to offer the Zoom and be at the thing, so we're gonna have to make sure it doesn't conflict with any other boards or committees.
Yeah, so I'm looking at my calendar right now. And that's a very good point, Dan. And I am planning on, I was hoping we could do a hybrid meeting just in case someone wants to tune in via the internet. And right now, Wednesday, August the 4th is wide open. So Barbara?
There's the discussion,
Oh, that's
the
right.
overstory discussion that was going to be at the library.
You're
And
right.
I don't know that we can find a date without a conflict, but that's the evening discussion of the community read book.
Yeah, that's the only Wednesday night that we don't have an evening meeting scheduled.
Be a Tuesday that isn't a select board meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
What do we have on Wednesday, the 11th, Anthony?
That's the communications committee
Oh,
Melanie?
usually the third Wednesday.
Oh, is it?
Oh, no.
Oh,
hold
you
on.
are, no, you're
No.
right.
No,
Huh?
wait a minute. No, I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yep, nope, that is.
It's not on the town calendar yet.
No, we keep bringing that up.
Communications committee, get on the calendar.
I know, I'm like, why are we not on the calendar? We're not cool enough.
So if we're looking at a Tuesday night, Tuesday the 10th is available.
We want to put it on Tuesday, the 10th?
That'd work for me. What do you guys think?
Cemetery committee meeting, but
Yeah, the cemetery committee can meet in the small conference room, and we can have the seasonal meeting in the boardroom.
Okay, what time?
So, you know, we want to be able to accommodate you guys. So, Melanie, if you want to attend, would it be better to have it at 6:30 or 6:45
That's my day off, so.
on Tuesday?
Oh, hold on.
How are you gonna video them both?
Oh,
You're gonna
yeah.
have
Video what both?
both the committee meeting and this meeting.
So,
If you're
the cemetery committee has not been Zooming, but if they wanted to, we would just set up a computer in the small conference room for them.
Okay.
Okay, so that being said, then 6:30 would probably be the earliest. I didn't get out of there till 6 tonight, so it was a little bit of a mad scramble.
Well, do you want to try to set something a little later?
We can shoot for 6:30, and
Okay.
then I'm not leaving work early as long as I leave there at 6 o'clock.
Which date is this?
This is August, Tuesday, the 10th.
Just so you know, I won't be available, but
Okay.
it's no big deal if you guys are all there. So I'm on vacation. I'm gone.
Now, that's acceptable for you to check in.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll go over big.
Patty doesn't want to come? All right. So maybe at our next meeting, well, hold on. Because we usually try to line up who's going to be available for questions and answers. So is that too soon for us to do that, or at our August 3rd meeting? Will we attempt to finalize that? We usually have someone from the dams committee, someone from some of the various committees in town.
Yeah, let me think about sort of what might be of high interest to people. I think Dick Greenan, one of his charms is he's always game. So I think he would be happy to come and talk about lake levels.
Anybody else that we can think of? Kind of drawing a blank on it. Mary, who have we had in the past?
Somebody from the Main Lakes Resource, or
Right.
which is now the Seven Lakes Alliance.
A lot of times you have somebody from the library talking about what they've got going on.
Right.
Yeah,
Recreation.
we will have all the,
the rec
we'll have all, oh, go ahead, Barbara.
I was just going to say the rec department.
Yeah, we'll have all of the directors there and they'll all have a chance to give a little spiel.
Okay. Should we have light refreshments?
Sure.
Carol's got a hand up.
Oh, hi, Carol.
Yeah, I think PLA would like to be there to, just talk about the Great Pond management plan and the Long Pond management plan. Just an update.
Yeah. All right. All right, next up, we have the warrant. I'll take a motion to open that.
So moved.
Albeit,
Second.
Ooh, seconded and thirded. All those in favor? All right, Anthony,
Yes, this is warrant number 82 in the amount of $88,187.58.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? I think I just bobbled that. Now it's open for discussion. I don't think I had anything. I know, shocked, but
No, happy.
and you're like, whew. All right, nobody else had anything? All right, seeing none. Barbara,
Yes.
Ricky,
yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses.
And then I don't know if you guys saw this, but I did send a second warrant today just for one of our performers for the Village Green Music Series. That is warrant number 85 in the amount of $450.
Thing is, don't we have a policy though that they have to be in by a certain date?
Yeah, and with this one, Dan, because we want to be able to hand the checks to people as when they're done performing. That's sort of the standard, I guess, among musicians. And so I've spoken with the recreation director and just reminded her that we needed to make sure we got these invoices in a more timely manner, so we did not have to do additional warrants.
All right, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Dan,
Yes.
Ricky,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ernie.
Restate the motion again.
The motion is to approve the warrant in the amount of $450.
Yes.
Okay, 5 yeses. All right, now we have the town manager's report.
Yeah, if I can find it.
Just thinking the same thing. I've had a fan going over here and I've been trying to keep the papers corralled, but I think I mixed that one in.
All right, I'm gonna have to. My stack of papers here, I've lost it, so let me pull it up online real quick. So I do know that the first thing on it is the planning board is finishing its work on the subdivision ordinance. And I just talked with Peter Rushton yesterday, and he's ready to come and make a presentation to you guys just about the work that they've done in this, and an executive summary of the proposed changes to the subdivision ordinance. Assuming that you guys are okay with that, we would normally obviously take that to the town attorney to do a review of that ordinance before we send it to the voters, which we are hoping to do in November. So, but as I have promised you guys recently, I'm not going to call the town attorney until you have authorized it. So wanted to seek your direction on that, please.
How are we making out on the other, the solar and wind ordinances? Because it'd be nice to do them all at once.
Well, and they have not even started that, Dan. They're trying to finish up this subdivision ordinance. It's a very lengthy ordinance, and it's very involved and detailed, and it's something that hasn't been rewritten in 30 something years. And so, to be quite frank, they haven't even started on that. And we may be coming back to you at some future point asking to extend that moratorium even further.
Like I said, that one for the solar and wind, they really need to look at that one. I think I sent you from, what was it, Chelsea?
Yeah, I have forwarded.
That'll give them a lot of information. They won't have to reinvent the wheel with that one.
Yeah, and this has been a topic of discussion on the listserv for the Maine Town and City Managers Association very recently. And so I have provided them with a couple of different templates on what other communities have done in regards to solar ordinances regulating solar arrays.
Yes, would be amicable to Peter coming and doing a presentation.
Okay.
Was that all that was on your thing?
Well,
I can't find mine either.
yeah, and I guess
And I'm like,
well, I could share my screen here if that would be helpful with the report on it.
no, was there something else on your report?
So the legal review, I guess we don't have to make a decision tonight, but you guys just need to think about, we will have to submit that. I think we should submit that to Bernstein Shore for a legal review once you guys are comfortable with it. And of course, that will involve an expenditure of money out of our legal services line item. Secondly, and this is an important thing too, I previously emailed you that one of our school board members, Evan Fisher, is no longer a full-time town resident. And so he had to resign his seat on the RSU 18 board. That seat's term expires in March, meaning voters will elect a new school board member at our next town meeting. But until then, it's your responsibility to appoint a replacement. So I think our options are twofold. One, if you know of someone who is interested, I'd be happy to send an application to that person. And then you guys could consider that after we've received it back. Or secondly, if you would like me to advertise the vacancy on the town's website and our Facebook page and on our marquee, I'd be happy to do that as well. Just want to see how you'd like to proceed with the school board vacancy.
I think doing an advertisement on the town stuff is a good idea, even if we had someone that we thought of.
Okay.
And is it possible, can we use the sign at Belgrade Central School and put it saying?
Yeah, I'm sure Mr. Gartley would be agreeable to that. So I will.
Remember?
Yeah, I'll ask him about it.
Because there's a lot of sports and stuff going on there right now. So folks may be looking at the sign.
Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, we have an office offer to purchase the town's old shredder, which was in pretty sad shape, for $25. There is a forever article that authorizes the select board to sell surplus property, that's less than $25,000 in value by, quote, any legal and reasonable method. So may we sell this shredder? Do you want us to advertise for sealed offers for the old shredder?
Yeah. If somebody's willing to pay $25 for it, let them have it.
Sell it.
All right. Very good. And then lastly, it was last week, I celebrated my second anniversary with the town, meaning it's time for my annual evaluation. So just wondering how you would like to proceed with that.
I think I liked how we did it last year, where we gathered input from all various departments and then compiled it. Anyone who participated, what did you think about that process? Guess no one cared. Let's do it that way.
I wasn't part of it, so I can't comment.
Well, so what we did was we essentially put out a list of questions to departments and personnel, and what came back, then we use that to help with our evaluations. So, because it's hard to know, we know what our perception of how Anthony's doing is, but his interactions and management with other employees also comes into our overall evaluation. So we felt that that was important.
And last year I did a self-evaluation. Would you guys like me to do that as well?
If it makes you happy.
I don't need the extra work, but I'm happy to do that if you think it would be helpful.
I think we should check in with your wife.
It's one of the few people who thinks I'm wonderful.
More than a few.
Ricky unmuted just for a second and then he muted again. So he was
I
just
was
about
gonna say something, but I do have a question for you though.
Yes, sir.
How much money are we gonna get back from the school department this year?
So that was factored into our tax commitment. So we got back about $57,000 that we were able to reduce our apportionment to the school district by.
So that's all we're getting back is the 57,000, is that correct?
Yes.
We don't get anything every month?
No. So the way that worked, Ricky, is they were able to determine, they were able to recalculate what each town's apportionment would be. And so we were able to factor that lower apportionment into our tax commitment, which, you know, helped us to be able to maintain the 15.38 mill rate.
Something else I'd like to have you find out if you could.
Okay.
How much COVID money did that school get?
Okay. All right.
Oh, you
By the
figure
way,
the county,
speaking-
the county got about 18 million, but yet our county taxes went up.
Yeah, well, and you know why? Because that money, as I've said before, can only be used for very specific purposes, and most of the county's budget is related to criminal justice, law enforcement, and the courts, and that is not a allowable use for those funds. And in fact, Kennebec County is going to have a real difficult time figuring out how to use its money because it offers so few services. They may end up returning the bulk of that back to the federal government. On Thursday, speaking of COVID money, I will be going to a meeting of the Western Maine Managers Association. Two of the people who work in the lobbying arm of the Maine Municipal Association are going to be there talking about allowable uses for those federal funds.
We didn't get any, correct?
No, we're getting.
We did.
Yeah, we're getting $314,000. But again, it's not free money in that we can't just use it on anything that we would like. The allowable uses are very narrow, and so I'm interested in learning more about how we can creatively use that money to our benefit. Chiefly, Rick, I think that's probably going to be through stormwater projects, infrastructure.
Okey-doke. Does anybody
that's
have
my-
anything else?
Yeah, no, ma'am, that's my report.
I don't know if you guys have noticed yet, but some of the cemeteries been hydroseeded, so you should have grass growing up maybe by the weekend. If everything goes good.
With all this rain we've had, yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. Thanks, Rick, for all you did over there.
It's my sister's deal. I just work for her.
I know, well, but you were there doing the work, and thanks to her as well, you know, sure.
I'll also thank you, Anthony, for giving Lily some direction and start getting that pool taken care of down there.
Well, Lily actually asked. She and I talked the other night, and she was like, you know, the pool's it's not coming along. So I said, well, then maybe you should ask Anthony if you can take control of it. Take the water, go get it tested. We don't know what it needs unless we have it tested. And then, you know, we used to use Dominic, but where he's gone, I mean, and having the company they were using is out of like, was it Belfast? Like there are local companies around that we could be using. So if we've got that pool and it's an asset, we should be using it.
Yeah, so we called in a pool company and they were of great help today. They're going to be back tomorrow. Should be able to be swimming in there by Thursday.
Ta-da. Perfect. When we adjourn, Dan, will you stay on for a minute so that we can chat?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn. How about that?
No.
Can I bring up this one thing, Melanie?
Sure.
At the last meeting, I brought up, it was to do with Bar Harbor Trust, the money that they had setting aside that nobody had claimed, and the question why the auditor didn't find that money or didn't realize we had that money. And I guess there's a question for Anthony. Did you get any clarification from the auditor on that?
I did not. I think I emailed both the budget committee and the select board about this, but when I talked with Ruth about that, it occurred to me after the fact, I think people have this perception that a financial audit looks at every transaction that the town engages in. And really and truly, that's not the case. It's more of a statistical sampling to see if we're adhering to standard accounting practices. So unless they were looking at that transaction individually, it might not be something that they would pick up on. Ruth Dunbar, when I ran that theory by her, completely agreed with it. And so, but I'm happy to reach out to the auditor and get her thoughts on it as well.
I'm just not putting any blame. It's hard for us if we don't have something that tells us there's that money somewhere, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we did, but we had gaps in knowledge, if you will, from transition from one treasurer to the next, and now the treasurer and the town manager know what we didn't previously know. And I will say it ended up being a wash, Bruce, because the amount that we had not drawn from Bar Harbor almost exactly equaled the amount that we needed to deposit into our accounts.
Yeah. That's all I had. Thank you.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Barbara?
Yes.
Ernie?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, bye for saying goodbye. Night, guys.
Night.
Bye-bye.